Hello and welcome to my channel and welcome into my home. I have you in my home today, unlike my other videos where I have you outside, but currently mid-January we got that very rare 1 week of snow. We're actually about 4 days in now, in which everything in Southwest Washington seems to come to a screeching halt. So with that being said, I am inside today because it's harder to do videos outside in the snow, and I wanted to talk to you regarding some warning signs when you're looking to purchase pre-existing homes here in Southwest Washington, that if you don't know about these things, it will absolutely cost you money, time, or both. I wanted to make this video today because I'm actually having a real live situation with one of my current buyers that are relocating into the area. They thought they found the perfect home, and I saw a couple little red flags, and so I told them, hold up, I want to be able to do some research on it and get you the information that you need just to make sure there's no surprises. And yeah, there was some surprises. So I want to let you know about that little story. And also there are a couple other issues that are arising. Well, because we have an issue with the rise of multi-generational living, which means where you have several generations of families living in one roof, or under one roof, should I say. Along with the other two things that I want to talk about today, which I advise a lot of my clients on, due to the high rise of multi-generational living that we are encountering here. In fact, a statistic is indicating since 1971 all the way up to 2021, they did a study, and it showed that we had the highest jump in multi-generational living, meaning multi-generational families living underneath one roof. We had the highest rise of that take place from around 2010. I see the highest peak going up to 2021, and it's a continual request from a lot of clients that I work with when we're looking at pre-existing homes. The new construction, they're getting a little bit better with the junior suites on the main, or the little casitas or ADUs. They have a little different language for them. But overall, we have a large demand for that. And with that, a lot of families are doing some creative things to their home that when they put it on the market, it makes it look presentable, like you're getting a lot, you know, multi-generational family, ADU, but there can be some issues with that. So let me start with those two things that we encounter a lot, so you know about that. And then I'm going to tell you about the current story and some things that you need to know about all things land, acreage, and ADUs. So let's start with the first two. The first one that I'm going to talk about is when you're looking at a property, and it may be a 3-level or it may be a 2-level home, and usually on those they're going to be older homes, usually from 1920s up to around 1966. 1970s we see a lot more those long rectangular ranch homes, but you know, not to say that there isn't some that has like a full basement, but we won't have this issue as much with those ones. And that is, you will have, of course, the cove ceiling on the 3rd level of the home, which isn't so bad. Usually you have tiny little closets. But the issue is those lovely little basements. And a lot of times, again, homeowners are trying to create more space for growing families and multi-generational families, you know, that are actually in a home and need the space. They're converting those basements into living space. And the issue that we have is that if you're looking on Zillow and you haven't reached out to an agent, actually give you the details, the behind the skinny type of thing on the house itself, then you could be really thinking that you're getting more of a home than what you're truly getting. And let me explain. So in that basement that they're converting, what you need to know is that for number one, in order for it to be counted as living space, then it actually needs to have a legal ingress egress. And an appraiser will actually give it less value than a standard 2-story home. And that's just because having a legal ingress egress means, well, your windows are too small. If there was a fire and somebody had to get out and the door coming up into that main level of the living was blocked, they would be trapped. And so they want to have another legal access to where somebody can fit through a certain size of a window to be able to exit the property. Now, some of these homes may have an actual door put in them because, you know, it might have been a really deep crawl space because it used to be a, you know, a place that they stored potatoes. But a lot of them don't. And so with that being said, when you're looking at a 3-story home or sometimes a 2-story home, and that basement under there does not have legal size windows, your square footage is not going to be calculated the same. And of course, you're going to sometimes have really low ceilings because they have to run the ducting through there, and the windows are going to be really small. And just like right now when I'm recording, well, we got gray skies, so everything kind of gets a lot darker. So really, if you don't put a lot of lighting in there, you're going to feel like you're in a dungeon. And so I always tell my clients with those converted basements, just be mindful that for resale and also may have appraisal issues, you might not get the most out of that home as far as value as if you bought an actual 2-story home or, you know, or daylight ranch where it has that legal ingress egress in that basement area. So that's number 1. And the number 2 is you may be looking online and you will see a wonderful 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. Well, in the 1990s, they made a lot more of those 2 stories because they're kind of compacting things in. But in those ranch homes, what you may not see in the photo, and it may not be really evident in the actual pictures themselves, is the fact that they converted the garage. And the issue with that, of course, is you're looking at a photo for number 1, you're thinking there's a 2-car garage, and there's not. They might have still kept the garage door on there, but when you go into that garage, it's completely converted. Some of them, just like the photos that I'm showing here, are actually walled in between where the garage door is. Some of them still keep the epoxy flooring, you know, or they epoxy the floor at least, instead of having it concrete, which is nice. And then they will sheetrock, finish in sheetrock, and then they will put heat into it. Now, some things to be mindful of, again, for that conversion of that garage, it has to be permitted. And if it's not permitted, then the square footage doesn't count. And not every single agent that puts the home on the market and lists the square footage may know, because maybe they didn't ask or maybe they got misinformation, but they didn't know that it wasn't permitted. And so because of that, then it, you know, they think they're advertising a house that may be 1,600 square feet, but in actuality, it's only 1,200 square feet. The issue that you have is that you've already spent money on an appraisal, to then that appraiser came in, they're looking and doing their investigation, and they're finding out that that square footage does not match the original footprint of the square footage at the time that the home was built. And so what they're going to do is they're going to come back and they're going to require that that garage be permitted, in which, depending on the seller's situation, they may not be able to do. It's important that when you're, even if you're looking a year out, 6 months out, 3 months out, and you're thinking, I don't want to bother an agent until I get, you know, everything lined up, please bother us. It is our job, and we want to work for you. We want to gain that relationship with you. We want to protect you, and we want to be able to provide you with information that you will not always have readily available to you, that we will most certainly have available to us. And that will bring me to the very last one. Not all information or all keywords that are put in the public advertising give an accurate description of what's going on with the property. After all, an agent does need to glamorize the property. And so because of that, they're not going to give all the negative things about the property. Their job is not to deter you from the property. Their job is to romance you into the property so that once you get there, maybe you'll love it so much that you're going to overlook some of the issues that you find out. But that can really be an issue, because what if you flew in for that property and you thought, well, I want to fly in for this property, and to fly in, take time, pay money, or drive in, whatever, to take time off from work can be really disappointing. And so that's what brings you to my story that I'm going to tell you right now. I have some great clients right now. In fact, they might be watching my YouTube channel right now, because a lot of my clients do, even though we are conversing and having conversations. And they found a property that they absolutely love. And some things to know about property with acreage, and warning things that you always need to look for when you're looking at properties with acreage, with ADUs, with shops, with forestry, with rivers and streams. Those things are wonderful, but there are a lot of pitfalls and there are a lot of things that can tank the deal if you aren't given the information ahead of time. And you certainly don't want to be slapping down 1% of the purchase price. You don't want to be taking money out of your account. You don't want to be making time off of work, or, you know, driving in to see a property, or getting as far as ordering an appraisal and not having these key alert things to be mindful of that you should be knowing about before you even see the property, nonetheless write an offer on it. Let's talk about land with forestry. We love acreage, we love land, but some things that you need to be aware of is that it may say that it's an R5, which is like a residential 5-acre, you know, parcel. However, what you may not be aware of is that it has an agricultural status, which means that maybe whether it was required at the time it was set up or that current owner put it into ag, they are saying that they are going to do something with the property to keep it in natural habitat. They're going to have a certain number of trees. They're going to create a duck pond. In fact, the listing that I had listed here last year, great property on over 7.5 acres, had a legal ADU, which I'll get to in a moment, but a beautiful property, but it was in an ag status. And what that means is when owners put it in an ag status, they do that because they're able to pay less property taxes. And that can mean up to $3,000, $4,000 a year that they're saving. And they don't mind having a few more trees planted around here, or making sure that they upkeep maybe, or have a place for ducks to come and you know, have a nesting ground or whatever was set up on it. And so they will do that. They'll set it up on ag and to have that property tax advantage. But when they sell it, the new buyer has to either keep it in ag to save that property tax, or if they have it taken out, that's perfect. I always negotiate that the seller pays the 7 years difference of their tax savings, so that doesn't get charged to that buyer that is purchasing. I always do that, but you know, and the sellers usually, for the most part, don't have an issue, but some of them do. So you definitely need to know about that. True issue is that you need to know how to draft up a new proposal, because sometimes you can't always take the current ag and just move it into you using it. And so I know that I have some of those provisions for my clients, but you want to make sure that whoever you're working with does have the provisions as well. And so if you're going to continue with ag, that's great. You just need to know what's going to be required of you. And more importantly, if you're looking at the property and you don't know about this situation, you might be looking at it saying, okay, property taxes are around $7,000. All right, that's fine. And that's what you're calculating your mortgage payment off of. And then you find out, no, if you want to take it out of ag, because maybe there's some things you want to do with that property and you would want to do those things more than, you know, keeping it in ag, then you're going to want to know if that changes from, you know, $7,000, $8,000 jumping up to $13,000 or $15,000 a year for property taxes. You will absolutely want to know that. Let's talk about the ADU. All of these wonderful properties, or barns, or shops, all of these things, sometimes, hypothetically, you may buy a property on acreage and it doesn't have a shop. Maybe you had a custom home built, it doesn't have a shop, it's on acreage, and you're out in the middle of nowhere and you put up a shop. A lot of times people aren't aware, meaning people as in county, isn't aware unless one of your neighbors kind of makes a call. And so if that happens, then of course county will come out and they will absolutely make you permit it or make you tear it down. And there might be some fines associated with not telling them at the time you did it. But what's important is I see this all the time, you know, or they may have a detached garage and then it all of a sudden has an ADU added. That ADU was not permitted. And you're buying a home thinking it has a permitted ADU. You're giving value in your offer based off of that ADU, because that's going to be another place for mom, for grandma, for your kids coming back from college, Maybe you're thinking you're going to do an A, B, and B. That's part of the value that you wrote the offer for. So it's really important that you have your agent, because we can find out these things a lot faster and we know where to go and we can have conversations than you. And that's exactly why you hire us, is to be able to find these things out for you. And so these are some of the issues when you're looking with property, you know, on acreage. Even if you're thinking everything is okay with the acreage property, with the land, whether, you know, it's not an ag, it is an ag, there can actually be other problems that occur that you will want to know about, which leads me to the lovely story that I want to tell you about, which is why I actually made this video today, so that you can be aware, so that you do not fall under any type of disappointment or loss of time, money. And so here it is. My clients who are relocating into the area, we found a property that they loved. This property, it looked good as far as like taxes are matching. However, there was a little red flag on it with some language in the private remarks, to where I told my clients, hold up, let me do some research, get some information. And lo and behold, it had some habitat conservation requirements as part of that home being built on the property. And so what took place is the current owners bought the property. They did not read the CC&Rs. So they bought this lovely property, and it had a stream on it, which everybody loves the streams, right? And they naturally wanted to clear and make a pebble pathway, put a bridge over the stream, put big boulders. I mean, they spent a lot of money on this property. Only to a few years later, when they want to sell it, at the time that they got an offer on it, which ended up sale failing because of this issue, I want to point out, was notified by county like, I'm sorry, yeah, even though it's been since, you know, 2016 when this home was built, yeah, what did you do? Did you not know that this property had a habitat conservation, you know, restrictions put on it? And so these poor owners, they had to remove the bridge, remove rocks, and now the county and Fish and Wildlife came out, because Fish and Wildlife, so they had two people coming at them, came out saying, you have, you know, this little stream here has some salmon in it. And so they had to fulfill requirements by that, which means they had to remove the bridge, move the rocks. They're having to move things away, a cute little, you know, little shed, she shed, that they had. This isn't just including the shop. The shop, they also got, you know, they got in trouble with because it wasn't permitted. And, you know, so all of this can of worms opened up. Now, if you were a buyer, you came in and you did not know about any of this. You wrote an offer, put down earnest money, have an inspection, and then you find out all of this. Number one, I forgot to tell you, the county still hasn't come back and giving them how they can remedy this. You know, they have it in verbal, but it's not in writing. So these poor sellers are waiting for the county. They had to get an attorney, mind you. They're waiting for the county to, you know, tell them how many shrubs, which it looks like it could be a lot of shrubs, over 400 to 500 shrubs and trees that have to be planted, not that many trees, but that have to be planted to put this property back into stipulation in order for that home to be built, which had to be in a protected habitat conservation. And so my client, luckily, he's finding out all this information before he even comes into town, before he even writes an offer, before he gets even more emotionally attached to the property. And it also will dictate how much we're going to write that offer for, because this seller doesn't want to take on this headache. Instead, they want to give, you know, a very small, you know, credit towards the property. And so, well, wouldn't you want to know that ahead of time? So, you know, so all of that to be said, when you're buying land, you absolutely need to make sure, look at the CC&Rs that go with that land. You want to make sure to look at the road easements agreements, like who's going to maintain the roads coming into that property. Is it maintained by county? Is it maintained by the owners? And if it is maintained by the owners, do they have something written out, or is it just a good old boy handshake in which sometimes those crumble as new neighbors come in? And so you definitely want to keep the integrity of your community and your property, especially in rural areas when you're purchasing acreage property. And of course, you want to make sure that those ADUs are permitted, those shops are permitted, any conversions inside a garage in the homes are permitted. You know, everything that has to do with homes that you think would have taken place and been handled, that aren't always the case. And so that's what we're here for. That's what us realtors are here for. I wanted to just make this video just to give you the information of a few scenarios that we're seeing that I didn't want you to be surprised about, lose money on, lose time on, and of course emotional investment into, and then be disappointed. So I thought I'd shoot out this video, and I hope that you liked it. And so certainly keep tuning in every single week, and I thank you for just subscribing and hitting the bell for notifications, because I do post these videos every week. They always kind of change up a little bit. And so anyway, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a great home buying and selling day.